Oz, it's so wonderful to have you here at the Northwestern campus. And if you could just explain what's brought you here to Northwestern.
Well, I've come for the Veritas Forum, and I love joining in the Veritas Forum wherever it is, because it's a powerful pre-evangelistic presentation of the gospel. But what they do is unite all the Christians on campuses for a night or 2 nights and working together. So it's always an incredible privilege, and I think there's a real hunger today for people to think more deeply about meaning.
And one of the groups that has invited you here is the Redeemer at Northwestern, which you've just had a breakfast with some of the Redeemer students at the campus. What's your impression about this congregation that's here at the heart of the campus at Northwestern, as you've been talking with some of its leaders today?
Well, I loved the breakfast because it was very stimulating and wonderfully warm hearts. But for me, what was wonderful is you have a church on campus. There are many scores of parachurch ministries, but to have an actual congregation of a worshiping, fellowshipping church is unusual. But I think even at a level deeper than that, I've heard, say, of Anglican 1000, and it's a very inspiring concept, but I've never seen it on the ground. And to see the various branches that you have here in this region, is truly amazing. And for me as an Englishman, I mean, you grow up with a parish system, and people look at these Gothic churches, Romanesque churches, they're picturesque and they're historic and so on. But no one ever stops to say, how was it in the very first place that people had such a mission for England, pagan England, that they had this missionary movement which planted a church in every single place, and that's what we now call a parish. And I've been in places like Hong Kong where a parish would be the top half of an apartment block.
Right.
Floors 30 to 66 or whatever. But to see this happening in America by Anglicans is absolutely thrilling and inspiring. And so it's been wonderful to get a glimpse of this on the ground in terms of what you're doing here.
Oh, well, that's very encouraging. It is so encouraging to have you come and bringing these gifts of an apologist to speak to this setting and to help people have a framework for bringing the gospel. As you kind of look forward in reaching North America, what's a word of challenge that you would give to this congregation here in the midst of this university campus? What would be a word of encouragement or challenge that you'd have for them as they go forward?
Well, the universities are probably the toughest nut to crack for the gospel. It may take us 50, 75 years. We've got to think long term. Secondly, we've got to think institutionally. Far too much witness on campus has been to undergraduates, not graduates, not professors, and even when it's reached professors, it hasn't thought of institutions that change the very heart and nature of the campus itself. So we've got to think long term. Now, to do that, we need to recover a passionate, powerful biblical apologetics, because it's now said everyone is now everywhere. And one of the implications of this, with all the different worldviews around, everyone's explaining themselves, defending themselves. This is the great age of apologetics. Much American apologetics is too scholarly, or it's too philosophical. It's not flexible and personal. It's not something for every lay Christian. Be ready to give a reason for the hope that's within you. That's the word, as you know, for an apology. And so we need to have a recovery of biblical apologetics. And my own passion is for persuasion. When people are open, we're in business. If people are open, interested, and needy, the gospel is the good news. But what about people who are not open, not interested, not needy? In the scriptures, there's all sorts of ways of reaching them, raising questions, reframing arguments, using parables, and so on, to subvert. I call it creative subversion. Imaginative ways to open hearts and minds, so they then can approach the gospel as good news.
And I know you were just at UCLA and you're here at Northwestern. How do you find the university engagement? What as far as doing apologetics in this age, do you find an openness? Do you find it real difficult getting in, or what's your experience?
Well, generally there's an openness. I mean, postmodernism is faltering. The only strong postmodern arguments I've discovered in the last 2 years among young Christians, which is really foolish, it's fading on the campuses. So there's an openness philosophically and intellectually. Now the trouble is the American universities, do you know the book Anthony Croman's The End of Education?
Yeah.
They've become places for credit, credentials, careerism. So people aren't thinking about the big questions and the meaning of life. And, you know, UCLA, incredible weather, beaches and surfing close by. You have to break through that sense of what Blaise Pascal called diversion. And make people think the unexamined life is not worth living. Let's tackle the big questions. And as soon as they start to think like that, then it becomes easier. But you have to work at that. But I'm not discouraged. There really is amazing opportunities today on the American campuses. I was at Florida State 2 weeks ago with 1,000 there. There was an overflow room at UCLA with a couple of hundred packed into the overflow room. And you can see a real hunger to listen.
Well, thank you. And thank you for coming to Northwestern, and thank you for being part of this ministry.
Thank you. My pleasure.
God bless you. Thanks.